Three small pigs, three small pigs.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to Narco Cop MMA. I'm your host, Mike, and this is the Street Smart Picks episode 4 for UFC Houston. We have a pretty big card here, some good matchups. We have the main event. It is Anthony Fluffy Hernandez versus Sean Strickland, so it's a really good main event here. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this card, and I appreciate you guys for coming on in. And while you're here, please like, subscribe, and do all of that to support my channel. Thank you very much. With that being said, we will move on to the first fight of the night. And the first fight of the night, it is in the women's flyweight division. It is the 4-3 Juliana Miller versus the 5-2 Carly Judice. Juliana Miller is 29 years old. She is 5'6" with a 66-inch reach advantage. Carly Judice is 26 years old, 5'7", with a 68-inch reach. Currently, the money line here, it is minus 650 on Judice, and the comeback on Juliana Miller is plus 450. Yeah, I mean, looking at this matchup for me, it's going to be one-sided, man. I don't see this any other way. Carly Judice has really improved her takedown defense. Her striking is levels above Juliana Miller. She looked really good in the last two fights where she finished both opponents, Eunice Duben and Nicole Cagliari. And when you watch Judice, you know, she went to Houston. She did some grappling training out there with some very, very good grapplers. She's trying to improve her grappling. In both of her losses, actually, both were by split. One was in Contender Series to Karakate, which you could have given it to her. And along with that, Gabriela Fernandez, close fight, and you could have given it to her. But you see the improvements from this girl in the grappling. And, you know, she came out. She defended most of the takedowns against Cagliari. She looked really, really good in that fight. Cagliari is pretty physical for the division, and she just couldn't really, even when she took her down, she could not hold down Judice, man. Judice still 26 years old. She's going to be improving quite a bit. And on the other hand, Juliana Miller, just not a good fighter, in my opinion. You know, very, very sloppy wrestling, very, very sloppy striking, extremely hittable on the feet. She got KO'd against Luana Santos pretty bad. Veronica Hardy was landing on her. She even landed takedowns on her. This girl is just really not UFC material, to be honest. And, you know, her record shows it. She's 4-3. She is currently 2-2 in the UFC. But, yeah, I mean, I think this is a massive, massive advantage for Judice. Basically everywhere. Physicality, striking, and, yeah, I think she finishes here. So I'm going to go with Carly Judice here. And my prediction is going to be a KO 2 or 3 on Carly Judice. All right, next fight of the night, fight number 2. It is in the men's featherweight division. It is the 12-3 Jordan Leavitt versus the 10-0 Yadier Del Valle. Jordan Leavitt, 30 years old, 5'9" with a 71-inch reach. Del Valle, 29 years old, 5'9" with a 69-inch reach. And the current prices are Del Valle minus 380, and the comeback on Jordan Leavitt plus 315. We'll start out with Jordan Leavitt here. He's moving down to featherweight here from the lightweight division. Jordan Leavitt did fight featherweight once upon a time, very early in his career and in the amateurs. But here he's moving back down to the featherweight division. And when I looked at one of his interviews, he was interviewed and he was asked, why did he move down to featherweight? And his reasoning was because he had too many friends at lightweight and he didn't want to take fight versus friends. And so that's the reasoning of why he moved down to featherweight, which is kind of awkward. But at the end of the day, he's probably a little undersized, maybe for lightweight. I don't know. I mean, he was fine there, to be honest. But let's see how the weight cut goes for him. I'm not sure about that. But yeah, he's dropping back down to featherweight. I mean, Jordan Leavitt is basically a one-trick pony. I mean, he is going to try to get the fight to the mat, and that's where he's best, right? He's a good grappler as far as jiu-jitsu wise. I don't think he has the best wrestling. Most of his takedowns are coming upper body lock trips, stuff like that. So I don't really think he has the best wrestling. However, last time out against Kurt Holobaugh, he got him down early and got the submission right away against Holobaugh, which is impressive. Holobaugh is a black belt, so I will give that to him. But Holobaugh is kind of at the tail end of his career. He is 39 years old. He's not young. And to top it off, Holobaugh has some of the worst takedown defense. I mean, he's just got horrific takedown defense. That was a pretty easy win for Jordan Leavitt. The fight before that, it was Chase Hooper. Not that easy for him there. Hooper can grapple, and that gave him issues. Jordan Leavitt did actually kind of get the fight to the mat in a weird way. It was like kind of a thing where they just kind of scrambled to the mat, and he basically got swept there, and then Chase Hooper basically got him with an RNC. Paddy Pimblett, kind of the same thing. He got Paddy Pimblett down a couple of times, was really good. But then when Paddy got him, he got on top, and he was reversed many times in that fight. Paddy got his back and then choked him out. And, those are not the worst losses versus two really good jiu-jitsu guys in Pimblett and Hooper. But, he doesn't really have great wins either. Trey Ogden fight was on the table. Trey Ogden slipped. Trey Ogden not very good off his back. He just kind of stays there, plays jiu-jitsu. So that wasn't like the best win, but that is probably the best win of his career, Jordan Leavitt. And on the other hand, we got Yadir Del Valle, 29 years old, undefeated prospect, 10-0. Last time out, the Bulgarian fight, I don't know what to make of that fight, because, it's sketchy in the sense that, we know the FBI is investigating it. There's a lot of stuff going on with that fight. Did Bulgarian actually throw the fight? We don't know 100%, but it did look a little suspect when Bulgarian shot for that takedown. He couldn't even drive. And then eventually Del Valle turned, got his back, and it was basically a wrap after that. He got him there and pretty much stayed there with the body triangle, eventually subbed him. Connor Matthews fight, he looked good. He struck for a little bit, then got the takedown and got Connor Matthews with the RNC. I mean, that's not the greatest win, to be fair. But then in his Contender Series fight, man, I mean, this guy went for it like crazy against Monteiro. And if it wasn't a guy that's so durable like this Antonio Monteiro guy, many people would get finished there, man. I mean, Monteiro took a beating and just kept going, man. And Monteiro, 24 fights. He's never been finished as far as a KO is concerned. He's never been KO'd. So we know he's super durable. The thing with Yadir Del Valle that concerns me the most is sometimes his fight IQ is not the best, right? People are they're getting in a clinch, and then he's jumping guillotine. And he does that quite a bit in his fights. We saw it against Alamov. I think we saw it a couple other fights, where he's doing the same thing. He jumped guillotine against Monteiro, albeit he almost subbed him. If it wasn't for the bell, he probably subs him. That is an issue, like fight IQ, but I do think this kid is improving. He's very physical. He's very strong. He's the much better striker here of the two. He's got way more power, way more finishing ability. I just think he's going to be stronger everywhere in the wrestling. I think he's much better striker. The only thing is I could see him making a mistake, jumping guillotine and potentially ending on bottom, and maybe Jordan Leavitt getting some kind of submission. I mean, Del Valle is a black belt. He is very schooled on the ground. It doesn't look like a fish. So even if it gets there, I think Del Valle is probably going to be able to pop back up. So for me here, I just think Del Valle is going to finish Jordan Leavitt. I think it's going to be KO, but I wouldn't count out a guillotine sub. Jordan Leavitt has put himself in a lot of guillotines, and Del Valle does seem to have a very good squeeze. For me right now, I'm going to go with Yadir Del Valle by KO. I think it comes round 1 or 2. So Del Valle KO for me. I kind of think this line's right, if not a little bit short. 80% maybe Del Valle for me with how I'd cap this. So give me Yadir Del Valle, round 1 or 2, knockout. All right, fight number 3. It is in the welterweight division. It is the 11-6 Phil Rowe versus the 9-2 John Paul Lebosnoyani. Phil Rowe, 35 years old, 6'3" with an 81-inch reach. John Paul Lebosnoyani, 27 years old, 5'11" with a 72-inch reach. And currently we have Lebosnoyani minus 205 with the comeback on Phil Rowe at plus 175. An interesting matchup here in the welterweight division where John Paul is coming off his finish in Dana White's Contender Series, and he's taking on not the easiest matchups in his debut here. I mean, he was scheduled to take on Austin Vanderford. That fight fell out. Austin Vanderford pull out. So Rowe is taking this, I believe, on like 3 weeks notice, 2.5 weeks. And yeah, Phil Rowe kind of getting up there in age, right? He's 35. He's going to turn 36 this year. And Phil Rowe, main issue for the most part has been his grappling, right? It's been his takedown defense. It's been the fact that, his get-up game is not very good. He tries to play jiu-jitsu off his back. He's just not very explosive when it comes to grappling. And when he's on his back, he's kind of stuck there for a long time. On the feet, obviously, look at that reach advantage. He's got a 9-inch reach advantage. He's got a 4-inch height advantage. So he's got some attributes here that could potentially give Lebosnoyani some problems. Last time out against Ko, he got taken down over and over again. And not only was he taken down, but he was held down for that entire fight, basically 13 minutes of control by Ko. I mean, Phil Rowe landed a total of 4 significant strikes in that entire fight. So it's a very, very bad look where he just kind of got grappled easily. Ko has looked really good so far in his UFC, in his 2 UFC fights. So I will say that. But even in the Angelosa fight, man, he got dropped in that fight. It was 1-1. It was a very, very close fight before he hurt Losa in round 3 and finished him. And Losa got tired there, right? He gassed pretty bad. He's known to kind of gas in round 3. And Rowe took advantage of it and finished him. But, Jake Matthews fight, another fight where he kind of got grappled a little. He lost there. He got outstruck. Magny fight, another close fight where it was basically just striking for the most part, and he lost that fight as well. There's a lot of clinch work as well. That's the other area that I don't really like Phil Rowe. He's not very physical. So you get him against the fence, and he just doesn't know how to separate, doesn't really know how to get himself out of those positions. And that's an issue, for the most part. I mean, right now, Phil Rowe's best win in the UFC has come against Angelosa, which honestly is not saying much. Angelosa is 10-5. He is not really, really good. I don't even know if he's still on the UFC roster. He could be, but this fight against Lebosnoyani, I like what I see from this guy. He's only 27. He's very, very well-rounded. He's got good striking, very good kicks, very good jiu-jitsu. He can wrestle a bit. I don't think he has the best wrestling, but he can wrestle. He's pretty physical, and he's down to the swing. I think the one issue I see with Lebosnoyani a little bit, when guys can defend his takedowns, he doesn't do great off his back. Even though he's a good jiu-jitsu guy, he doesn't do great. But I don't think he's going to have an issue here with Phil Rowe. Phil Rowe is not going to get on top of him. If anything, I think John Paul is going to get on top of Phil Rowe. On the feet, I like his kicks. He has really, really good kicks. We saw his head kick knockout last time on Contender Series. It was really, really nice. He's got some really, really nice submissions on his resume. He has been KO'd before by Spike Carlisle, and the Jacoby Jones one was a cut stoppage. But I think this guy, he looks the part. He has good cardio. Sometimes fight IQ can be a problem. I think the Victor Kuex fight, Kuex was a huge kickboxer type of guy, and he decided to just stand with this guy for 3 rounds. I think it would have been much easier if he just grappled, but he didn't. So, I don't know what the deal is there with not grappling or what. But honestly, the thing is, outside of Phil Rowe catching him, maybe potentially knocking him out, but I do think he has a very good chin. I think he can beat Phil Rowe in a multiple ways. I think he could sub him. I think he can knock him out, and I think he can win a decision. I like Lebosnoyani. I think he is going to be pretty good in the UFC. I think he's going to keep improving. He's good everywhere. Rowe is declining for me. He doesn't have great wins. He does have power in his hands. He has a pretty good gas tank, but I don't think he's going to able to gas pedal Lebosnoyani. I think he has very good cardio. The only concern with John Paul would be his UFC debut. Maybe there's an adrenaline dump. Maybe there's something like that, because it could happen. It's the UFC debut. We've seen it way more often than not. Like, people they're just dumping in these fights and looking horrific coming into the UFC debut. So that's a problem. He is coming in as a sizable favorite here, but I kind of think he has Phil Rowe covered, man. I mean, Rowe's kind of low volume, looking to pick his big shots. He could land his big left hand, but I also think his legs can be destroyed in this fight from Lebosnoyani. So I'm going to go with round 2 or 3 KO for Lebosnoyani, just via destroying those legs, making him more stationary and then landing big shots on him. So I'm going to go with John Paul Lebosnoyani here by KO, rounds 2 and 3. Fight number 4. It is in the welterweight division. It is the 12-4 Punahele Soriano versus the 13-5 Ramiz Brahimaj. Soriano, 33 years old, 5'11" with a 72-inch reach. Brahimaj, also 33 years old, 5'10" with a 72-inch reach. Currently, Ramiz Brahimaj is a -130 favorite with the comeback on Soriano at +110. It's a close fight, man. I really don't know which way to go on this one. I was kind of torn. Initial tape study told me Soriano could take potentially Brahimaj down, maybe work him a little bit, get some top time. But then, I don't really like what Soriano does when he gets people down. He really doesn't work too much on top. He trying to control more. He throws some ground and pound, but not great. Last time against Veretennikov, it's mostly just taking him down. He did land a lot of little strikes, but nothing like very, very big. Veretennikov had him in a couple of submissions, which was concerning. He had him in a deep guillotine. I believe it was round 3. He had another submission attempt on him earlier. So that is a bit concerning, especially when he's going against Brahimaj, who has very nasty, nasty front chokes, guillotine, stuff like that. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So Soriano needs to be very, very careful here. Soriano coming down to 170 the last 3 fights, 3-0 at 170. So he's looked pretty decent. He's looked well here at 170, mostly stronger than everybody here. I think here against Brahimaj, I think he's going to be the better wrestler of the two. The problem is the jiu-jitsu aspect of it. I don't think he has the better jiu-jitsu, and I don't even think it's close. Brahimaj does tend to play off his back a lot, which is a little bit concerning. He did that in the Vanderford fight. He was grounded for most of that fight, I believe, before he found the guillotine. Then you look at the Garimba fight, and, that was coming off a long layoff, a bad surgery, his neck and this. So I will give him a break there against Garimba. But, he was taken down 5 times. He was controlled for over 10 minutes. It was a terrible, terrible look for him there. But again, coming off a major surgery, neck problem, all this layoff. So I will give him a pass there. These guys are mirror matchups when you look at their stats, both 33, 1-inch height advantage for Soriano, same reach, basically same record. And look at the price, the price is about the same as well, basically a pick 'em here. I lean Soriano here just because I do think he has the better wrestling and get top time on the feet. I think Soriano has more power. Brahimaj, he does a lot of movement on the feet. Maybe he's a little bit more technical, I would say, but he just doesn't throw enough volume for me on the feet, which is, a pretty big concern. Like, the guy just doesn't throw enough. You look at the most strikes he's ever landed in UFC over 3 rounds with the Max Griffin fight, and that was 45 significant strikes. So this guy is very, very low volume. He's moving around a lot. It's not like Soriano throws a ton of volume, but he just has more unfinished shots. He has more power. And I do think, he couldn't potentially rock Brahimaj with that big left hand, that he knocked out Urs Medic with. So it's a close fight at the end of the day. It's a very close fight. I don't know which way to go. It's a pick show, so I have to give you a pick. I'm going to go with Punahele Soriano by decision here. Razor close, 29-28, split, possibly in the split territory here. So I am going to go with Punahele Soriano by decision. All right, next fight of the night, fight number 5. It is in the women's bantamweight division. It is the 9-3 Nora Cornolle versus the 16-6 Jocelyn Edwards. Cornolle, 36 years old, 5'7" with a 67-inch reach. Meanwhile, Jocelyn Edwards, 30 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. And currently, we have Jocelyn Edwards -300 favorite with the comeback on Nora Cornolle +250 here. This is a rematch, ladies and gentlemen. They fought about 2.5 years ago in France. Jocelyn Edwards, in my opinion, was robbed in that fight in France. I thought she won that fight. But when you look back at the fight, actually, she did make a lot of mistakes in that fight, which is something with Jocelyn Edwards historically. She does make mistakes. Her fight IQ hasn't been the best. But I do think she's improving. She's steadily improving. You could see it in her physique. She's looking a lot more lean. She's taking everything more seriously. Hence, she's on a 3-fight win streak, right? And when you look at that fight, Jocelyn Edwards got a lot of takedowns in that fight. I believe she had 5 takedowns. The problem is she was reversed multiple times in that fight. You know, she was making mistakes with the grappling, and she got herself reversed. You know, she did, you know, kind of get back on top or whatever, but she was getting reversed at the end of these rounds. And, you know, in France, it somehow swayed the round to Cornolle, even though I disagree. You know, the striking here, you know, she decided not to strike last time. I still think Jocelyn Edwards is probably the better striker overall here, kicking and hands. Definitely the better hands, in my opinion. I think where Cornolle might be a little bit better, maybe is the clinch because of her Muay Thai background. But even there, I think Jocelyn Edwards is pretty good. Last time out against Priscilla Cachoeira, a beautiful, beautiful shot. Cachoeira knocked her out, you know, and then the fights before that, you know, 2 good wins against Chelsea Chandler where she knocked her out, and then she finished Vidal via rear naked choke in round 3. The fight before that was the one where she lost to Aileen Perez, where she just got out grappled. You know, Aileen Perez, good grappler, good wrestler for WMMA, and she got her down a bunch there. It is what it is there. She lost that fight. It was kind of a bad matchup, I guess, for Edwards based on what I saw with the takedowns. But I don't think this is a good bad matchup for her, honestly. I think this is a good matchup. Cornolle, you know, whatever she did 2.5 years ago, I don't think she's improving. I mean, the girl's 36 years old. You know, 2.5 years ago, she was 34 to 33. Now she's 36. She's up there in age. I don't think this girl is improving. I look at her last fight against Carol Hossa, and she just got grappled, man. Easily got grappled against Hossa, just dominated in the grappling. This girl has like nothing off her back. I don't know how she was consistently sweeping Edwards in their first fight, but I do think Edwards has improved. You know, she has improved since that fight. She is the one that's getting better. She is 6 years younger. I just think this is a spot where Edwards should win here. I'm not rushing to the window to play Edwards at minus 300 to be fair, because I just see a little bit too many mistakes from her with the fight IQ. That's where I don't agree with. You know, you look at Cornolle, I do want to say this too. Both these girls have missed weight plenty of times in the UFC. Cornolle has missed 2 times in 5 UFC fights. Terrible look. Jocelyn Edwards, on the other hand, she's missed weight 3 times, but she has a lot more fights in the UFC. So they need to correct this weight thing. I don't know if either one or both are going to miss weight again, but hopefully not. Hopefully this fight goes through. Ultimately, I do think Jocelyn Edwards win here. I want to make a point here that Jocelyn Edwards had a deep submission late in the fight against Cornolle in round 3. My prediction is I think she finds a submission in this fight. She should grapple. I mean, grappling Cornolle looked very, very easy with Hossa. Edwards has improved overall. I think she can take down Hossa and do similar things she did to Vidal and then eventually finish her. So this time it's in the US. It's a little bit different. Cornolle won't have the scorecards in their back pocket. So I'm going to go with Jocelyn Edwards by submission here. Let's go round 2. Let's move on to the next fight of the night. It is in the flyweight division. It is 10-2 Luis Gurule versus the 11-3 Alden Coria. Gurule is 32 years old, 5'5" with a 64-inch reach. Coria, 27 years old, 5'8" with a 67-inch reach. Currently, Coria is a minus 250 with the comeback on Luis Gurule at plus 210. And, you know, listen, last time out, I played Alden Coria at a huge dog price against Alessandro Costa, and he literally dominated that fight against Costa before finishing him in round 3. I don't know if Costa came in hurt or whatever, but for me, I was just a lot lower on Costa than most people. I didn't think the guy was very good. He has power, obviously he has jiu-jitsu, but I think that's it with that guy. I don't really think he's very skilled at his wrestling. I don't think he's very skilled in his striking. So, and he's pretty small. So I think he was going to have a lot of issues with Correa's movement, his kicking game. And sure enough, he did. You know, Correa did well there, completely dominated. Luis Gurule, on the other hand, kind of fumbled the bag the last couple of times. You know, Ode Osbourne, round 1, got a big takedown, stayed on top the entire round, looked good. Round 2, he's striking with Ode. I believe he threw a naked kick, and he got caught with a big left hook, and then follow up, and he got finished. Last time again, it's Aguilar. Aguilar came out like a ball on fire in round 1, putting the pressure on him, landing big shots. Kind of took round 1 easily. Gurule came back, won round 2, was on his way to winning round 3. He was looking pretty good. Then he eats a jab, runs into a jab, gets dropped early. Sorry, that was early on. He got dropped early on in round 3 in that fight, came back in round 3, was landing some big shots on Aguilar and looked better towards the end of the round, but just couldn't make up for that initial drop. And so he lost that fight as a pretty big favorite. Now he's coming in here as a pretty big dog against Alden Correa, and I think this has a lot of recency bias baked into it. Correa coming off a big dominant win, Gurule coming off 2 losses. And here's what I see when I watch tape on this fight. I think Correa is the better striker. I think he has better footwork. He's faster. Physicality, I kind of give Gurule a little. He's more physical. He's the better wrestler of the two. Jiu-jitsu, probably Correa. The thing that I've seen with Correa, though, is, and this has been consistent in his career, I know both these guys from Fury. They both fought in Fury, which is located in Texas. So they're probably kind of like fighting in home again. Correa does train in Texas while Gurule trains in Colorado. So it's more of a homecoming for Correa. But when you look at his losses, Michael Sear, Joseph Camacho, and Alberto Trujillo, the same thing exists with all 3 of those fighters in those losses, is that they were forward pressure guys that threw a good amount of volume and they just kept the forward momentum. They mixed in takedowns, and eventually Correa tired out in all 3 of those fights. One of them, he got finished against Michael Sear. Camacho, he was very tired at the end. And the same thing could be said for Trujillo fight. He looked tired. So those 3 fighters fight a little similar to Gurule. Gurule is a forward foot guy, forward pressure. Maybe he doesn't throw as much volume, but he has more power than a guy like Trujillo or maybe even Camacho. Even Sear, I would say he probably has more power than him. And he'll mix in the takedowns, right? So if Gurule fights smart here, forward pressure, mix in takedowns, put that forward pressure on Correa, get him exhausted from movement and stuff. Don't sit at range with him, because he's a much better striker than Gurule. I will tell you that straight up. Yeah, when I look at this line, I just kind of feel like it's wrong. I've seen Correa also get hurt. Correa got hurt against Chris Ocon. Correa got hurt. I believe it was the Camacho fight. He got hurt pretty bad. So I've seen him hurt. He does get hurt. It's not like he has a great chin himself. And I think Gurule hits pretty hard when he decides to throw. So I think there's some value on Gurule, honestly, here. I think this line's a little bit too big. There's recency bias. Who I think wins? Probably ultimately Correa. I think Correa 29-28. But I would not be surprised if Gurule won 29-28. So it's plus 210. I'm going to take Gurule by decision here and take the big price money tag and fade my boy Alden Correa, who cashed a big plus money ticket for me last time. All right, moving on. Fight number 7. It is in the flyweight division. It is the 13-9 Ode Osbourne versus the 10-1 Alibi Idiris. Ode Osbourne, 34 years old, 5'7" with a 73-inch reach. And Idiris is 31 years old, 5'6" with a 68-inch reach. Currently, Alibi is minus 135, and the comeback on Ode Osbourne plus 115 here. A lot of money has come in on Ode Osbourne lines coming in. I get it. I get the fact that, there's a lot of people that like Ode Osbourne in this fight. I mean, Ode looked good last time. I had him at a big plus money price tag against Ursig, and he kind of gave up the fight. He hurt very bad in round 1, almost finished him. But then, Ode does have a little bit of fight IQ problems. He tends to do some things where he shouldn't. I mean, round 3, he got grounded. He was about to get up, but he re-engaged into grappling, trying to wrestle up and trying to go for a double leg. Eventually got taken right back down by Ursig and stayed on bottom and lost round 3. It was a pretty close fight either way. I do think that the level of opposition between these two guys is night and day. I mean, we look at Ode Osbourne and he's faced some really good fighters in the UFC. He is 1-4 in his last 5 fights, but losing to Almabeya, Filial, Ursig, not the worst looks. Ronaldo Rodriguez, he almost finished him. I mean, a lot of refs would have stopped that fight in round 1, but somehow they let it go forward. Credit to Rodriguez for coming back. But he got that knockout win against Gurule, so we'll give him credit there. On the other side, Idiris, not very good in, I don't know if you want to call it his UFC debut. I guess it was. It was the tough finale against Joseph Morales. Pretty much got out-grappled by Morales, who's a very, very good grappler. So I don't know what to make of that. He did look tired as well. The one thing that sticks out with Alibi is the spinning stuff, man. He needs to stop that spinning stuff. Spinning back fist, spinning kicks, spinning that, spinning this. This guy's over under on spins per fight is like at minimum 5. And I would probably play the over because this guy just loves to spin. Spin, spin, spin. Very, very stupid fight IQ, honestly. Not very good. Not very good for his cardio. But I will say is that maybe after landing that spinning back kick against Harrison Pereira and he knocked him out, it looked really good. This guy decides to keep spinning in every fight, thinking that it's going to work. But it's a low-level move. It's very, very bad in the long run. It's very, very bad for your cardio. And yeah, I mean, Ode can catch this guy easily on the feet. He's defensively void. He's very, very hittable. He makes a lot of mistakes, and Ode will make you pay, man. If you stay at range with this guy, he's long, 73-inch reach, so he has a 5-inch reach advantage. And he's a sniper. You know, when it comes to his striking, he's really, really good. Good kicks, but that very good left hand. So I do think he could potentially hurt Alibi on the feet, you know. But on the other hand, I could also see Alibi mixing in takedowns like he did in the regionals a lot. You know, he mixed in a lot of takedowns in a lot of those fights. He had a lot of takedowns at Yukabov. He had a ton of takedowns there. So I could see him getting takedowns here, potentially winning a possible decision here. So I'm going to go with Idiris by decision here in this fight. Yeah, so my official prediction will be on this fight is Alibi Idiris by decision, kind of close fight, you know. So I could see Ode landing and hurting this guy and potentially finishing him, but I do see Idiris landing a good amount of takedowns. He's been 5 rounds many times. So yeah, I'm gonna go Alibi Idiris by decision in this one. Let's move on. Fight number 8. It is in the welterweight division. It is the 25-11 Chidi Njokuani versus the 22-7 Carlos Leal. Njokuani, 37 years old, 6'3" and an 80-inch reach. Meanwhile, Carlos Leal is 31 years old, 5'11" with a 74-inch reach. Currently, Carlos Leal minus 120 and the comeback on Njokuani at plus 100. Another intriguing matchup where, you know, both guys got finished very early in both of their last fights. You know, Njokuani was doing well, some nice body kicks, you know, extremely, extremely good Muay Thai striker. This guy's lethal at distance, lethal. Very, very long, 80-inch reach for the welterweight division, 6'3". You cannot stand at range with this guy. He will pick you apart with his hands, with his kicks. And then when you get in a clinch, he will absolutely destroy your body with knees to the body, very, very sharp knees to the body, very good elbows in the clinch. So he's dangerous basically everywhere except when he gets grounded. You know, when he gets on his back, he's not the best. You know, he doesn't have the best get-up game. He is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but, you know, he's been subbed 4 times. So, you know, he does tend to, I don't want to say the word is give up, but when things go south for him, he tends to mentally check out of the fight, which I don't like seeing. But ever since he's been at 170, he's looked good to me. His cardio's looked good. He's been strong in the division. You know, he's been able to defend takedowns. The last one against Jake Matthews was unfortunate, where he kind of like tripped him, got him like he jumped his back and he went to stand up, and eventually Matthews got that RNC in. The other ones, you know, he's looked good against Reese McKee, good and, you know, good get up game. Zaleski, he absolutely destroyed Zaleski in that fight. He did miss weight. That is a little bit of an issue, you know, getting up there in age at 37. But, you know, when I looked at this guy's Instagram, man, did he look jacked. You know, I posted his picture on X, and this guy looked jacked. And Njokuani, you know, looks really, really good. Whether that helps or harms him, I don't know, but it looks in peak shape here. I think he's going to make weight for this fight. Meanwhile, the other guy, Carlos Leal, you know, he got finished early, very surprisingly, against Muslim Salikov as a huge favorite. He got knocked out cold as an almost minus 500 favorite in that fight. Really unexpected. You know, he'd never been knocked out in 28 prior fights. And then all of a sudden he got knocked out in that fight against Salikov. So I was very, very surprised. However, you know, he does leave himself out there to be hit. He gets hit a lot in fights because he relies on his chin. And now all of a sudden his chin went away and he got knocked out. It's going to be a big problem here for Leal. He cannot just try to close the distance without minding his P's and Q's. He's going to get lit up if he does. And one fight that I look at, or actually 2 fights that I look at that are very comparable to Chidi, are the Sarabusi. Sarabusi is very similar archetype in the sense that he's very tall and long. He's 6'3", 80-inch reach. He's not as lethal as Chidi. That's for damn sure. Like Chidi's way more dangerous than Sarabusi, and Sarabusi was tagging up Leal on the feet. Leal did go to grappling there in both of those fights with not a ton of success. He did have some success, did have some top time, but it wasn't a ton of it. And I figured, if Sarabusi is stuffing takedowns, I do think Njokuani could potentially stuff takedowns. I do see Leal maybe getting a takedown or two, maybe not getting the control. But on the feet, man, yes, can Leal land a big shot because he does have power and he could hurt Njokuani with the pressure? Sure. It's a big cage. That favors Njokuani right off the bat. He wants to get movement. He wants to get distance. That's going to be good for him, right? Big cage. Second of all, Leal defensively void. He could get cracked in this fight. The other thing with Leal is he could get calf kicked a lot. He could get body kicked a lot. All those things that Njokuani does. And then when he gets in the clinch, like I saw against Sarabusi, he kind of hangs out there for a long time, not really getting the takedowns. He's going to get stuck, just holds his opponent there. Njokuani is going to be nasty in the clinch. He's got to be very careful not to just try to hold Njokuani in the clinch because he's going to eat knees to the body. He's going to eat elbows up top. So overall, yes, Njokuani is older, 6 years older, but he holds a 6-inch reach advantage, a 4-inch height advantage. And honestly, the way Leal fights, he's not really a grappler. It's going to play right into Njokuani's hands with the striking. So unless Leal can weather the storm and keep pushing forward, while Njokuani lands big shots and he might break Njokuani, that's very, very possible. But I think Njokuani lands some big shots here, potentially hurts Leal, maybe even finishes Leal. I'm going to go with Chidi Njokuani to win here by decision. How about that? I think Leal is possibly going to weather the storm and maybe kind of clinch a lot and have the time run out. And Njokuani is just going to land the better shots and win a clear decision here. All right, let's move on. Fight number 9. It is in the middleweight division. It is the 10-2 Zach Reese versus the 31-14 Michel Pereira. Zach Reese, 31 years old, 6'4" with a 77-inch reach. Meanwhile, Michel Pereira, 32 years old, 6'1" with a 73-inch reach. Currently, Michel Pereira minus 140 with the comeback on Zachary Reese at plus 120 here. And the first thing that jumps out is look at that massive experience on the Michel Pereira side. I mean, he's got 45 fights to compare to 12 for Zach Reese. And Michel Pereira has been in the UFC for a very, very long time now. We're talking about since 2019, he started his first fight in the UFC, and he's gone to fight in the UFC about 13 times. So more fights in the UFC than entire Zach Reese pro career. Zach Reese, I mean, these guys are pretty similar in age, which is surprising to see Michel Pereira only a year older with all that experience over Zach Reese. Zach Reese does have a height and reach advantage. When you're looking at Zach Reese, his best win so far in the UFC has probably been, I don't know, Julian Marquez. Would you say is the best win? And that's not really a feather in his cap. Maybe Dusko in a very, very close fight. This is the thing with this guy. Zach Reese last time out, Jackson McVeigh comes in, just rocks him with elbows, splits him over with elbows. He was hurt very bad in round 1 with the elbows, with the clinch work. Zach Reese just looks pretty weak to me in the clinch, man. He's not very physical in the clinch, and he was getting out physicaled by a guy in Jackson McVeigh pretty bad. What he did revert to is eventually go to the takedown, got on top of Jackson McVeigh. McVeigh made a mistake, got his back taken, and was subbed in round 2. But, the first, 5-7 minutes of that fight, he didn't look great, man. He was getting pretty beat up in the clinch. He landed some good shots himself, but he was the one that was hurt pretty bad in round 1. Dumas fight didn't last enough. We didn't see anything really before the cup shot. Dusko Todorovic fight. Round 1, drops round 1 against Dusko. Dusko takes him down, kind of stays on top. Round 2 was pretty close. They gave it to Reese. Round 3, I thought it was extremely close. I thought Dusko landed the bigger shots, but they gave Reese a 29-28 win there. And then you look at his losses, the slam loss to Cody Brundage. That's another thing that shows the physicality. Just picks him up and slams him to a KO. Bakoya takes him down and just lands some big ground and pound, just knocks him out from ground and pound. In guard, his chin is questionable. His takedown defense is very, very bad. There's not too much to like with Zach Reese. Is he dangerous early? He's long? Yes. He's got good elbows, knees. He's kind of dangerous off his back with his long limbs. But like outside of that, his cardio is very iffy as well. Then he faces a guy in Michel Pereira who's coming on a 3-fight losing streak, looking pretty bad in my opinion. Kyle Daukaus caught him with a very good check right hook, dropped him, and then landed vicious elbows to finish him there. Abus Magomedov fight, didn't do anything for 3 rounds. I'm like, what are you doing, buddy? Like, you're not doing anything in this fight. And I just don't know where his mind was in that fight. He just wasn't there to fight. Then the Fluffy Hernandez fight, I don't blame him for that. I mean, Fluffy just kind of put him through the spin cycle with the takedowns and just he couldn't do anything. He just drowned him in that fight. He did say he was sick going into that fight. We don't know how true or false that is. But, you look at the Olashechek fight, good win. Ihor Pretoria, good win. Petrosky, good win. All finishes. This guy was on an 8-fight win streak prior to this 3-fight losing streak. He did say there was a lot of, family problems, other problems in his life. So he was dealing with. Also, he said this is the best camp he's ever had. True or false? Again, we don't know. But when we look at experience in this fight, it's clearly Michel Pereira. When we look at physical attributes, athleticism, stuff like that, it's Michel Pereira again. Wrestling, he's a better wrestler. Jiu-jitsu, maybe I'll give it to Zach Reese. I don't know. I don't think so. It's probably pretty close. And then the striking, it's Michel Pereira. The one thing I can tell you guys is Zach Reese is a southpaw. Michel Pereira throws nasty body kicks against southpaws. He will throw to the inside leg, and he'll throw the body kicks, and he's going to absolutely destroy Zach Reese's body with those body kicks, in my opinion. If it's 75% of Michel Pereira and not 50 and lower, and the guy that's just disinterested, he should look like a massive favorite in this fight, man. I think he has most of the finishing upside. I do think Zach can potentially finish him early. I don't know what happened with his chin in that Daukaus fight. He was hurt in Magomedov fight as well. But historically, this guy's been a tough guy to knock out. Not easy. Maybe the chin is going. I will say that Daukaus caught him with a very, very clean check right hook he didn't see. And then he wasn't out. He was dropped. But, man, those follow-up elbows were absolutely nasty and perfect. Could it happen here? Sure. It's MMA. Zach Reese does throw hard. He might try to go for it early. He saw that, worked out for Kyle Daukaus. But I think Michel Pereira wins this fight everywhere, man. I think he can get takedowns whenever he wants because Zach Reese has terrible takedown defense. And honestly, I think he can knock out Zach Reese. Zach Reese defensively leaves his chin up in the air, very, very defensively void, flat-footed, no movement. I mean, minus 140 seems pretty reasonable here, and if not, very low. So I'm going to go with Michel Pereira. I think he finds a KO here. KO 2 for me, or maybe even KO 1. Michel Pereira, he is back in a big way. Moving on, fight number 10. It is in the welterweight division. It is the 11-0 Josiah Harrell versus the 11-0 Jacoby Smith. Harrell, 27 years old, 5'7" with a 68-inch reach. Meanwhile, Jacoby Smith is 30 years old, 5'10" with a 72-inch reach. Currently, Jacoby Smith minus 350 and a comeback on Josiah Harrell plus 285. Josiah Harrell taking this fight on very short notice here. It's probably like a little bit over a week. He's going to be taking this fight. So a week's notice, Sun Ho Ko had to pull out with a rib injury. So the muscle hamster, Josiah Harrell, is coming in here. And he just recently fought about a month ago here in LFA. Big upset against Big Mirza Dasmatov. Harrell just improving fight after fight, man. He just looks better and better. His striking looks a little bit more dangerous, thrown with big power, good kicks. His nickname is Nice Muscle Hamster. He kind of looks like a short, jacked guy. He's got good defensive wrestling, to be honest. Could he be taken down? Yes, he gets taken down. But, man, this guy works back up, and he will make you work for your takedowns. It's not easy. I will say Dasmatov, guy looked really, really strong on tape when I watched this guy, and Harrell was able to weather the storm, get up, get on top of this guy, scramble really, really well when they were wrestling, get on top and do a lot of damage when he was on top. He showed a lot of heart cardio in that fight because it was a high-paced grappling fight. Just a lot of good things from the guy. And when you look at Harrell, he's got wins over Gingrich, who's a regional guy who also loves to wrestle a lot. Got a decision win there. He's got a good win against Tracy Reeder, who's also a grappler, where he finished him in round 2 in CFFC. So the guy's fought decent level of opposition, clearly is improving, but he's fighting an absolute menace with the wrestling. And Jacoby Smith, really, really good wrestler here. D1 wrestler at Oklahoma State. Very, very dangerous with his hands too when they're standing. Huge power in his hands. So Harrell needs to be careful on the feet. Harrell needs to be careful with taking down. All of those things can happen in this fight. I think Jacoby Smith can't hurt him on the feet. He's got big power. Although I will say Harrell's tough. And then also he can take him down. Jacoby Smith can definitely take him down. One thing about Jacoby Smith, I will say, is I did not like how he looked in the Nico Price fight. He looked like he was gassing a bit before he got the takedown against a literal ghost of Nico Price, an old, raggedy Nico Price. He almost finished him in round 1 to his credit, but man, he looked a little tired in that fight. And there was not like crazy resistance from Nico Price, which is a little bit of a concern for me here, because if Josiah Harrell does resist, does scramble with him, does get on top of him, maybe even, then we're going to have a lot of trouble for Jacoby Smith, because I think Harrell got better cardio, it looks like to me. Jacoby Smith has been 3 rounds. Austin Jones fight, he was 3 rounds in Fury. Another one against Le'Veon Lewis. But in both of those fights, he did look tired. I will say, he did look tired. So carries a lot of muscle. He's a thick guy. He's a good wrestler. He's a good athlete, has power. Kind of think minus 350 is a little bit too wide here. Just because of his opponent, man. Harrell will come and scrap, man. He will scrap. He will scramble. He's a very good scrambler. And if Jacoby Smith can't hold him down, he's gonna give him issues with the maybe Jacoby just decides to strike with him. That is possible. But I think this line's a little bit too wide on the Jacoby Smith side. So I do think he ultimately wins, Jacoby Smith. I don't know how. I am going to go with him to win, but minus 350 is not comfortable for me in this fight, which it could be close. It could be close because Josiah Harrell is not an easy out. He is not an easy out. Fight number 11, it is in the heavyweight division. It is the 17-6 Sergey Spivac versus the 26-7 Ante Delija. Spivac 31, 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. Meanwhile, Delija is 35 years old, 6'3" with a 78-inch reach, and currently Ante Delija minus 145, and the comeback on Sergey Spivac plus 125. Interesting matchup in the heavyweight division. These guys both coming off losses. Sergey Spivac, 2 losses in a row. Meanwhile, Delija coming off that weird loss against Waldo Cortosa Costa after he thought he won via knockout. It was an eye poke. They restarted the fight, and we saw what happened there as Delija got dropped by Cortez Acosta and finished. I will say that, when we look at these two fighters, they're kind of similar archetypes in that they'll throw pretty big shots on the feet, but they want to, for the most part, Spivac wants to grapple. Delija, not as much, but he does actually go to the grappling sometimes in his fights. So they are pretty similar. I do think Delija is a lot more dangerous on the feet. He throws bigger shots. I think his takedown defense is pretty good when you look at it overall. He has some sketchy moments in the regionals and in the Maurice Green fight. Maurice Green took him down early in round 1, was big red flag. Shelton Gray's fight, he was carried for 3 rounds, which wasn't the best look. But if you look throughout his career, he's mostly a round 1, round 2 guy. And if it gets out of round 1s or round 2, it's probably going to decision for the most part. He's pretty durable himself. The one loss to Moldavsky was more of an injury. Then you look Capoloza. Capoloza hits very, very hard. And the other one was also an injury a long time ago to Marcin Tybura. So technically, he's only been knocked out twice. Last fight versus Costa and the one versus Capoloza. Can Spivac hurt him? Sure. It's heavyweight division. Anybody can hurt anybody in heavyweight division. Spivac does throw decently hard on the feet. But yeah, I think this is kind of a close matchup, man. Spivac, yes, he didn't look great against Jalton Almeida. He actually did decent in the beginning, but then got reversed and eventually got subbed, got knocked out with ground and pound. But then you look at like the Cortez Acosta fight, and arguably he won that fight. And they gave it to Acosta. And now here we are. I stalk these guys' ID. I don't see much training from both guys. I don't know what they're doing, where they're training. Not really sure. But at the end of the day, Spivac is 4 years younger. I don't know if that really matters at the heavyweight division. 35 versus 31, not that big of a deal. They're very similar as far as height and reach. Both guys have experience, so I'm not worried about that. But overall, I do think Delija has a little bit more dog in him. That's the thing where Spivac kind of I've seen like wither in fights, But man, it's a close fight. It really is. Like I don't feel comfortable playing Delija. I don't really feel comfortable playing Spivac. This is a pass for me. But as far as a pick here, I'm gonna go with the guy with a little bit more dog in him and anti-Delija. I think he wins here. I wouldn't be surprised if this goes to decision, honestly. There's a lot of clinching and stuff like that. I could see it going the distance and, Delija winning a decision. It could be anybody winning decision, but I'll go with the pick, anti-Delija here, and he wins by decision. Fight number 12. It is in the featherweight division. It is the 19-10 Dan Ige versus the 25-7 Malcazell. Dan Ige, 34 years old, 5'7" with a 71-inch reach. And meanwhile, Mel Costa is 30 years old, 5'10" with a 71-inch reach. Currently, Mel Costa minus 210, and the comeback on Dan Ige is plus 180 here. Interesting matchup where we got the young surging Mel Costa versus the veteran in Dan Ige. But don't get it twisted. I mean, Mel Costa is a veteran himself. He's got 32 fights. He actually has more fights than Dan Ige, but Ige has a ton more fights in the UFC. Yeah, you look at Mel Costa, and he's absolutely surging, man. 5 wins in a row. He's looked really good. Morgan Charrier, I mean, I did not expect that, but what a well-placed head kick to knock out Charrier, who's never been knocked out, I believe, in his career. And then you look at the Arosa fight, Christian Rodriguez, he's looked good. He's looked good in all of these fights. His last loss was to Steve Garcia, where he pushed the grappling. Steve was just too physical for him, got on top and just absolutely destroyed him from top position. I don't think that's going to be the case here with Dan Ige. Honestly, is declining a little bit. I hadn't, watching Patricio Pitbull absolutely put a clinic with the grappling, mixing and grappling against him, getting 5 takedowns. And Pitbull, when you look at Patricio Pitbull, he doesn't really grapple like that. The guy is up there in age. He's like 38 years old at featherweight. So he's not young, and just got a bunch of takedowns in that fight against Ige. And 56% takedown defense, not great for Dan Ige. LaRon Murphy mixed in takedowns, got a lot of them against him. So it's Sean Woodson fight. Honestly, they had a 2-0 going into round 3. All 3 judges for Ige. I just don't know how. I thought it was the other way, 2-0. So that was perplexing on the judges' part. But this guy could potentially be 1-4 in his last 5 fights if it wasn't for the KO3. Yeah, I mean, the other ones, Diego Lopez, he lost at short notice. Can't blame him. I'm not going to blame him for that fight. But he's facing Mel Costa here. And this is the thing with this fight is Mel is going to be on the outside. He's going to try to use his kicking game out of the southpaw against the righty. Mel has very good body kicks, very good head kicks. We saw the head kick KO. He's going to try to stay that distance. And Ige, honestly, is not the best guy at closing distance. This is the issue, I think, for him is, I know he fought a long guy in Woodson, but Woodson's kicking game is nowhere, and movement is not as good as Costa's. LaRon Murphy, I guess I can compare a little bit. LaRon Murphy's obviously more polished fighter than Mel Costa, but I just think like Mel Costa can easily circle, let off his kicks, keep circling, doing his thing, eventually throw some punches. I think Mel Costa can even land takedowns in this fight, to be honest. Again, Dan Ige, he was competitive against Murphy. He made a mistake. He could have won that fight easily. Diego Lopez, short notice. He won round 3. Whatever. It is what it is. But last fight, he looked awful against Patricio Pitbull, just getting taken down over and over again. Not the best look, So his kryptonite has, for the most part, been grappling. When he's been grappled a lot, he's not very good. But I also think the kicks can come into play here. He had a little bit of trouble with, Lopez in that fight. I think Diego Lopez landed a good amount of kicks in that fight against him as well. So it could be where Mel Costa circles, kicks him a lot, does a lot of kicks. And don't be shocked if he lands another big, head kick again against a smaller, shorter guy in Dan Ige. Minus 210. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that because Ige is a veteran. He is very, he's still very dangerous with his hands. I mean, he has a lot of power in his hands. So he could potentially land a big shot on Costa while he's throwing a kick, something like that. But ultimately, I'm going to go with Mel Costa here. Not big conviction, but I think Mel Costa wins here. Mel Costa by decision for me. Move on. Fight number 13. It is the co-main event of the night, and it is in the welterweight division. It is the 12-3 Uros Medic versus the 16-7 Jeff Neal. Medic, 32 years old, 6'1", with a 71-inch reach. Meanwhile, Jeff Neal is 35 years old, 5'11" with a 75-inch reach. And currently, Jeff Neal minus 200 with the comeback on Uris Medic at plus 170 here. This is a striker versus striker. You got southpaw versus southpaw. The last time Uris faced a southpaw in Punahele Soriano, we saw what happened. It was an immediate knockout victory for Punahele Soriano. So Medic, huge step up for Medic here. You're going from guys like Muslim Salikov, Punahele Soriano, Orlabai, who's a good fighter as well. But now you're facing Jeff Neal, who's, kind of a upper echelon of the welterweight division, top 15 guy, good fighter, really good striker, lots of power, very good boxing. He needs to be very careful here. Obviously, Jeff Neal is not doing great lately in the UFC. He's 2-3 in his last 5, but look at the level of opposition. I mean, Carlos Prates, Dos Años, okay, whatever, but he disposed of him in round 1. But then look at Ian Gary, Shavkat Rakhmonov. Honestly, both fights were kind of close. Ian Gary fight was super close, split decision. Rakhmonov was, before he got finished, was pretty close. He was landing big shots on Rakhmonov. So, this guy historically got a really good chin for the most part. Last fight is a competitive round 1. And then Carlos Pratos landed a spinning back elbow that knocked out Jeff Neal bad. How he recovers from that, I don't know, but he's taken a good amount of time. We're talking 7 months now, so that's good. The other thing Jeff Neal mentioned is his last 5 years, he's been on drug and alcohol abuse, which is kind of disappointing. I didn't think this guy, he said he was heavy on it. The only time he would stop was 2 weeks before fight week. So during his training camp, this guy was doing drugs and drinking like nothing. So that possibly was hampering him in his fights. No doubt, if this is true, that was affecting him in his fights. He is 35 years old. I don't think he's taken a ton of damage. Only 23 fights at 35. Uris Medic, on the other end, he's a dangerous striker. He has very good power in his hands. We saw him knock out Salikov with 1 punch last time out. Then Urbina, another quick knockout. But the wins are just, for me, are not enough, man. Like Salikov, Urbina means, what are these mean? Even Salikov, like, you're talking about a 41-year-old Salikov he knocked out. Fine. Salikov knocked out Leal. The MMA math doesn't work, though. So knocked him out. But, man, the level of opposition, the skills in the boxing here, man. Jeff Neal is just a way better boxer, better kicker, way better head movement, better defensively, better clinch game. I think he can wrestle Medic potentially if he wants to. Yeah, I like Jeff Neal here, man. Like, he's fighting in Houston. If what he said was true, and he's been sober, he said, for the last 9 months, I believe, something like that. I think everything is going to level up, Even, I'm not saying his skill level is still going to be the same, but cardio level, everything else, durability, just, I think everything levels up, if you're off of that kind of stuff. So Medic, to me, is a one-trick pony. He's mostly hands. He's got big power, but I do think he fades in fights. That's the other thing. Like, I don't think he has the best 3-round cardio. I know he has a 3-round finish over Salzburger, but this guy's mostly been round 1 finished for the most part, right? So Jeff Neal, more experience, more 3-round experience, just a much better level of opposition. He's been 5 rounds. His losses are to really good guys. Yeah, I kind of think this line's a little bit short here on Jeff Neal. I like Jeff Neal here. I think potentially he knocks out Uris Medic here. For me, I'm going to go with Jeff Neal, but he's going to be back by KO. Let's move on to the main event of the night. And before we move on to the main event, I do want to tell everybody, thank you very much for listening to my show. Thank you very much for supporting my channel. I appreciate all of you. Also, if you want to get into the Discord, I will leave the link down below in the description. It's for free. Get into the free section. See if you like it. Free plays are going to be in there. Link is down below. Again, free. Just to click that, get into the Discord. And then if you like it, we can go from there. With that being said, we will move on. Main event. It is in the middleweight division. It is the 29-7 Sean Strickland versus the 15-2 Anthony Hernandez. Strickland, 34 years old, 6'1", with a 76-inch reach. And meanwhile, Anthony Hernandez, 32 years old, 6 foot, with a 75-inch reach. Currently, Anthony Hernandez minus 290, and the comeback on Strickland is plus 245. This is a good fight, man. Anthony Hernandez on a big winning streak here in the middleweight division. He is rattling off now 8 in a row, guys. He's got 8 wins in a row, looking really good in his wins as well. Absolutely destroyed Roman Delija, absolutely destroyed Michel Pereira. Brandon Allen, a little back and forth in the grappling. He did say he came in with a bad rib injury there against Allen, so we could see why he didn't look great, but still did what he had to do to win there against a very good grappler in Brandon Allen. And now he faces a guy in Sean Strickland who has a ton of UFC experience. He's got excellent cardio. He's got good boxing. He's got, good distance management. All the things with Sean Strickland are good. I think he has pretty good takedown defense, good get-up game. So all of those things will potentially help him in this fight. But, man, he hasn't faced anybody like Anthony Hernandez of late. Even the Duplessis fight, the first one, he got taken down 6 times. Was he able to pop back up? Sure. He got back up. But he was taken down 6 times in that fight. Duplessis is not a control guy. He's not a rinse and repeat takedown guy like Hernandez. Hernandez is going to rinse and repeat takedowns. He's going to try to put submissions on you. He's going to try to take your back. All the things that Duplessis doesn't do. Now, you look at Sean Strickland's career, and he's really not faced anybody that's tried to grapple him, guys. The last guy that tried to grapple him was Hermanson before DDP. He didn't have success, but I don't really rate Hermansson's wrestling. He's not a chain wrestler. He likes to strike a lot as well. And then before that, you would have to go all the way down and look early on in his career, and it was like Alex Garcia and Kamaru Usman. Usman got takedowns on him, but also Usman outstruck him easily on the feet. He had 8 minutes control with 2 takedowns, but he outstruck Strickland easily. I know that was a long time ago, and Strickland has improved since then. We're talking 10 years, 9 years ago. So obviously Strickland has improved. He was only 25 then. He's gotten better probably everywhere, right? But again, he's never faced a guy like Anthony Hernandez who will push the takedowns like crazy. The other problem for Sean Strickland in this fight, in my opinion, is that Hernandez is going to push him back. He's going to make him go on this back foot. And I don't think he fights well with the back. I think he needs to be on the front foot with his front kicks, with his teeps, with his boxing. He's too flat-footed for me. Like, a guy that's so flat-footed like Sean Strickland is going to get taken down by Anthony. So he's going to get run to the fence. It's going to be chain wrestling. I think Hernandez has the better cardio of the two, even though Strickland has great cardio. I don't know if he has grappling cardio. That's the thing. I think he can be put through the spin cycle here, man, with Anthony Hernandez. Anthony Hernandez, even his striking is very underrated, in my opinion. I think he has good striking. It's very underrated part of his game. If you watch the Delija fight, he was outstriking Delija on the feet. And Delija, the other thing is Delija is a physical guy, man. And Anthony Hernandez was tossing him all over the freaking place, man. So I find it hard to believe that Strickland is going to be able to weather all the takedowns, getting up. And I just think he's going to keep getting taken down. He's going to get frustrated in this fight. I won't be shocked if Anthony Hernandez finishes late. I do think Strickland's good on the ground. He's hard to finish. He's very durable. I do think the fight probably goes the distance. I mean, he's never been subbed. Strickland, he's got good jiu-jitsu, 36 fights, never been subbed. That says something. The guy has good jiu-jitsu. He's got good defensive jiu-jitsu. I believe he's a brown belt. 36 fights without being subbed is something, in the UFC for the most part. And then he's only been KO'd twice, and that was Alex Pereira, obviously huge hitter in Alex Pereira. And then the spinning hook kick against Zaleski, which kind of like a miracle. I don't think Hernandez is going to knock him out unless it's maybe ground and pound later in the fight. If Strickland's that exhausted, I don't see it. I kind of think this fight goes the distance, but I think it's a dominating win for Anthony Hernandez. He puts a stamp on, him fighting for the title, which he should if he puts a stamp on it here. So yeah, I like Anthony Hernandez here. I truly think that minus 290, he can cover that price, even though Strickland is probably his toughest opponent to date, I would say. But man, I really think he can make it happen here and just grind the win here with this grappling. So give me Anthony Hernandez by decision here. And yeah, that's it. All 14 fights here on Street Smart Picks. I appreciate everybody that is supporting the channel, that's watching my videos. Also, please do me a favor, hit the like down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I want to grow here on Rumble. I want to grow on YouTube. So please do it on both platforms. I want to keep growing. I want to give you guys great content for the UFC. And yeah, please like, subscribe, follow. You can find me at NarcoCop on X, NarcoCop MMA on YouTube, NarcoCop MMA on Rumble. Thank you very, very much. And let's cash those tickets for UFC Houston.
Yeah, we get it right. 3 small pigs, 3 small pigs.